The original M14 EBR concept that was started by Mike Peterson and Doug Carlstrom at Trijicon. When they retired in the fall of 2011, since then, and on this current training mission that we're doing with the 82nd Airborne, we've noticed several serious quality control issues that are taking place with the assembly of the rifles, and the rifles as being shipped to the units. So some of the things you want to look for if your shooters are having problems or they're not maintaining accuracy on these rifles, and we'll start from the front. The first one is the flash suppressor. All right, the flash suppressor, if it needs to be on the weapon tight. If it's not, and if it's moving around, what it's doing is the bullet, as it exits, if it hits the flash suppressor, are causing the shots to scatter widely. So to address that, you need a set of pliers that are they're available from Brownells Incorporated. They are not part of the normal armorer's toolkit. In the front of the flash suppressor is a set screw. Loosen the set screw, and there's a castle nut that secures the flash suppressor. The pliers go onto the castle nut, and it's tightened until the flash suppressor becomes tight. Once the flash suppressor is tight, you need to continue to tighten the castle nut until that set screw will fit down into one of the gaps in the castle nut, and that'll secure it in place and lock it, prevent it from coming loose again. The second one back that we've noticed is where the gas block is. The gas block attaches to the barrel, and it's secured to the barrel face, the cutout on the barrel face, with a crush washer. One thing we've noticed is that the crush washers have started to become they're loose and not securing the gas block tightly. What we've noticed is that it really doesn't have that much of an effect on accuracy. The weapons seem to function just fine. They seem to work just fine. They shoot just fine. But what that is a symptom is that the crush washers are being reused when the weapons are being reset. When the units return them to Trijicon, they're reusing the crush washers. Again, it's not a huge issue, but note that it will be there. Continuing to move back, the op rod guide block. There's a screw on either side of the op rod guide block and a screw on the bottom of it. And what we've noticed is that these rifles are showing up to the units without these screws tight. This is a critical part of the bedding system and what makes this rifle shoot so accurately and so consistently. So that would be the next thing back we would check if we're having an accuracy issue. What we've noticed is a lot of rifles, they're having accuracy issues. Once we check the flash suppressor, the next thing we're going to check is these screws for the op rod guide block. If they're loose and once they're tightened and torqued back to specifications, the rifle continues to shoot well or goes back to shooting well if there was a problem. All right, moving back from there, one of the major issues that we found is that the cantilever mounts, where they attach to the Picatinny rail system in the front, the top rail cover, there's throw levers on the left-hand side that have to be locked in place. Once they're closed, there's a locking latch that engages them and keeps them locked in place. The issue we're finding is that the cantilever mounts are not tightened properly. The two set screws on this side, on a lot of the cases, in fact, on this batch of rifles that we've been working with for the past week, 99% of them, all right, out of the 30 rifles, there was one that the screws were actually torqued properly. The other 99% of them, the other 29 rifles, the set screws were loose. All right, what this does is it causes the cantilever mount to move and destroys accuracy. Soldiers can't zero. So to do that, and all these set screws for your op rod guide block and for your cantilever base, all these tools are on your M14 EBR combination tool. All right, the Allen wrenches that are included will fit all these screws. All right, moving back, the next issue we found is we had soldiers on the line that could not zero because they ran out of elevation on their scope. What we found is that in the rear part of the mount for the cantilever system, there's a locating block that fits in to the stripper clip slot in the M14 receiver. That holds a pin which goes down through the top of the cantilever mount. When this pin is installed, the screw on it is screwed down into the receiving block, and then a slight amount, approximately a quarter of a turn, once it bottoms out, a quarter of a turn to preload the rear part of the cantilever base so it remains rigid and holds zero. What we found is that a lot of these have been tightened so much that it's actually bending up the cantilever base and putting in an additional approximately 20 to 30 minutes of angle into the cantilever base. So there was so much elevation already into the base that the soldiers couldn't achieve a zero because they would run out of scope travel. The scope would be all the way down and the soldiers would still be shooting 18 to 30 inches high at 100 yards. To do that, to fix that, once you have to first remove the optic. Then there's a set screw on the side, on the left-hand side of the cantilever base. Once that's loosened, you can go down through the top. All right, and that locating screw and the guide pin. You untake it with an Allen wrench, unscrew it until you'll see the cantilever base move back down in its proper position. And once you back it off, you turn it, retighten it until you see it touch, and then approximately additional 1/8 to 1/4 turn, and you will see a slight, very, very slight upward movement on the cantilever base. Right, once that happens, then you would retighten the set screw, the locking screw on the left-hand side. And at that point, the soldier should be able to zero properly. One of the issues that we found, another issue we found was on a couple of rifles, approximately 2 of them, was that the triggers were malfunctioning. This really isn't an issue with building the gun. Fortunately, we had spare trigger assemblies that we were able to swap out to get the weapons to function. However, in our opinion, that should have been found during test firing. There is a chance that it wouldn't have, and that they did fail but due to wear. But it's also something to be aware of. One of the rifles would double, fire 2 rounds in one press of the trigger, and one of them would go in the automatic mode. It would not go in a semi-auto mode.